What should we be? What should we do as a church? And sometimes, and maybe this happens when you're getting this kind of feedback in your personal life, sometimes you just want to throw up your arms, you want to give up figuring out who and what and where we should be or go. And so we default. We default into our personality type path of least resistance, or we conform to whatever is prevalent in our community. We just continue on with what has been. But maybe there is another way. Maybe there is some way that we can have presence, that we can communicate as a church, as people of God. And maybe the answer comes in a very simple description in the New Testament that you find in the very first group of Christians that organized their life together. And this comes in the second chapter of Acts. Luke summarizes it this way, talking about these first Christians. Every day they continued to meet in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. We're going to use this passage to notice some things about how these first Christians decided they wanted to operate, what they wanted church to be. And the first thing that I notice here is that this church is not gathering in a single location. They are living their lives together every day. Church for these first Christians was not limited to a Sunday gathering at a central place. It was a whole way of life. Although they spent a lot of time in the temple, which was a centralized place for Israel, they also gathered in homes, or some translations, some versions of the Bible say they gather from house to house. And they were known also, notice, by people outside of their circle. All the people. And they were known not with disdain, but they were known with favor. They enjoyed the favor of all the people. Suggests a familiarity. It suggests that these Christians were out there, that they were present with people in their lives. So it seems that they organized their life as a church in three places: the temple, the home, and among all the people. And the author of Acts, Luke, explains that the church devoted themselves to practices in these various places: the temple, the home, and among the people. And these practices included studying the apostles' teachings, fellowshipping, breaking bread, and prayer. They broke bread and they practiced their life in and among their neighbors and friends. They lived their lives every day, and by being among those outside the church, the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. I don't know. I think this is a pretty good description of how to do church. Doing church. It's not just about programs. It's about places. Doing church is a three-sphere place, structure. It's a church that gathers not only in one central location, but in 3 places. It's how to do church as a whole way of life, planted, nurtured, and grown in 3 places. Just as an aside, this really, talk about 3 places here. I feel I'm going left to right, or right to left for you. What I'm going to share with you, a set of analogies, it's not original with me. Comes from a book by a gentleman by the name of David Fitch. The book, I think he actually presents this in several different books he's written. The book that I was reading to take this out of is What is the Church and Why Does It Exist? And what he's trying to do in this book is show that how we as Christians can not forsake meeting together as people who follow Christ, but we can still have a presence in our communities. And our lives as Christians are lived in 3 distinct circles: the close circle, the dotted circle, and the half circle. And let me explain how he develops these analogies. First of all, the close circle. The close circle is the first place. Not the only place, but it is the first place that we do church. It's represented in Acts 2 there, that passage that we opened with, by the temple. It is the circle of the committed Christians who gather to submit their lives to Jesus as Lord in worship and community. It's not a closed circle, okay? I'm not saying it's a close circle. It's a close circle because it offers the closest of fellowship. Even though we're all sitting in economy class and, hey, wave to everybody. We're all spread out here. But this close fellowship is possible because those who gather in this circle are committed to their relationship to Jesus as Lord, but also committed to their relationship to one another in a reconciled, close community. In Luke 22, Jesus hosts a close table, and he points to the table, and he tells his disciples that there is a new kind of kingdom that is dawning. And Jesus is at the center of this place. Jesus is host. Jesus is our host here this morning. We have come to the table of the Lord, not my table, not your table. We have come to worship in this close circle. And in this close circle, we gather not only around the table, but we also gather around Scripture, around the preaching of the Word, the reading of the Word. We gather around mutual reconciliation, sharing, cultivating the fruit of the Spirit, being with children. And we submit to Jesus, and He comes and He's present and He's working among us here in this close circle. And in this circle, we submit all of our divisions, all of our personal agendas to Christ. And there's an amazing social dynamic that breaks out that can only be described as a new political order. It subverts all other allegiances. Just as when the first Christians got together in their close circles, they subverted Rome, they subverted Caesar, and they started a new way of life before a watching world. So we, as we gather in the close circle, undermine all the politics of self-preservation, of accumulation, of individualism. Because this is the place where the focus is not on me or you, the focus is on God and worship of God. This is the place where we learn to recognize Christ's presence. This is ground zero for the kingdom, the close circle. There is a second place that we do church, not just in the close circle. We also do church in the dotted circle. Christ's presence isn't just here, right? We come to recognize that Christ is present in the close circle so that he can also be present in other circles, in other areas. And so in Acts chapter 2, it talks about how they gathered in homes to eat, listen, and to be present to one another. And we also gather in neighborhoods, just like Jesus did when he went and fed 5,000. And that dotted circle is formed by Christians who are out in the neighborhood. But they're in the neighborhood and they're committed to and they're recognizing the lordship of Jesus. Now, there are openings in this circle, right? There's gaps in this circle. It's a dotted circle. What do the dots mean? The dots represent the fact that in this circle, people can see what God is doing. In this dotted circle is where we live everyday life. But as you go about your everyday life, there are openings for others as they watch you, as they talk with you, to see what this Jesus is all about, how he rules, how he works. And as Jesus works and heals and reconciles and transforms our lives, people around us see. And kingdom breaks out in the neighborhoods. And people are invited to join in. I think in these ideological times, people need to see Jesus before they can know that it's Jesus who they're longing for. People need someone who witnesses Jesus in the depths of their life. In the words of Steve Jobs, it's really hard to design products by focus groups. A lot of times, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And that's us in the neighborhoods, showing people. They may not even know that's what they need, that's what they want, until we show it to them. But Christ's presence is not even exclusive to just those places in the neighborhood, because Christ rules and is present over all the world. And so the church moves out of the close circle. It moves out of the dotted circle, and it moves into the social spaces among those who are broken, those who are hurting, those who are marginalized. It's all the people, as it mentions here in Acts chapter 2. We go as Jesus went, traveling here, traveling there. But you may remember a passage. It comes from the 19th chapter of Luke and a couple other places where Jesus says, as he sends out his disciples, he says to his disciples, you go as guests. You go as people who are not in control of the situation. And so as he tells his disciples, you go out as guests. In another place, he says, and this is I'm sure this verse was written for me as kind of a picky eater. But do you remember the verse where he says to the disciples, you eat what is set before you, right? You sit among people. I think what he's saying is you sit among people and you listen to what God is doing among people. But in these places, we're actually with people who don't yet know Jesus. And this is the third space, the third sphere where we do church. The half circle or the open circle. Space is open. We who know Jesus as Lord enter as guests and sit with those who do not yet know His abundance, His blessings. But there is no question that Christ is at work in this world. He's at work in those places. But the open question is, yes, God is at work in this world, but will God be recognized? Can people see God at work in this world? And when Christ's presence is revealed at work in this half circle, we who are guests simply point as witnesses to the good news. So we listen and we recognize that someone is in the process of being forgiven and healed. We gather over a conflict in town, a revealed injustice, or a grievous evil being rebuked, and we pray for that. We work together with everyone to overcome those things. We see an unselfish act, a physical healing, a reconciliation, or a uniting to confront and address wrongs. And we realize we're not God's sole presence in this world, but we are God's primary witness, the primary witness to God's presence in this world. And so we go out into the world, and what we say to people, to the world is, it's him again. There he is again. Kind of touches on what past few years in Vacation Bible School, every week the children are encouraged to come back with their reports of God sightings, where they see God that week. And we do the same, and we identify the God sightings to the world around us as Jesus reveals His presence. And we invite those around into His kingdom. We invite those around into His transformation. We as a church are witnesses to the inbreaking of the new heaven and a new earth. We are participating in that inbreaking of the new heaven and new earth into every nook and cranny of our communities and our towns. If the first circle is our worship place, and the second circle is kind of thinking of our discipleship place, then this half circle is the place where mission takes place. See, the church is not a set of programs in a central meeting place. It's a whole way of life, and we live it out in these three circles. We live it out close circle, we live it out in the dotted circle, out in our communities, we live it out through the whole world. No one is staying away from church because they're waiting for us to come up with a better program. We need to stop trying to meet a need that, frankly, no one is asking for. What are they looking for if they think about church at all? I suggest to you that if they think about us at all, they want us to be people of integrity, to live what we say we believe, and to do it in all three circles. That's the how of church. And this how has everything to do with where the church takes place. The church takes place here. The church takes place in our neighborhoods. Church takes place in our world. In all three places of life, not just one. And Christ goes with us. Christ goes with us in all of these places. From the places of worship to places of hospitality, into the places we live and work. And as far as I can tell, that's how the first Christians embodied their faith, lived out their faith in all three circles. They came together and they ate together at the Lord's table in that close circle, and they discerned Jesus' presence in that gathering, in that worship. But they also ate together and discerned Jesus' presence around tables in their homes. And they shared food and beverage with the hurting and the marginalized. But as Christianity spread, when the Roman Empire sponsored Christianity, and under Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, Christianity became the accepted religion of the state, and millions of people converted to Christianity. And what happened is that the church decided it had to get organized for efficiency. And I think that's where the beginning of the centralization of the church organization happened at that time. And I don't want to be too harsh in judgment on all of that, because it was needful that there be some swift and efficient organization when suddenly you have millions of people flowing into the now state-approved faith and church. But we're in a very different situation today. We don't have masses of people flowing into our church. We no longer live in a Christendom-based culture. So it's no longer about organizing Christians. We are in a post-Christendom world. And as a post-Christendom church, our task is organizing Christians into the mission of God in the world. In the face of our different call, we need to recover these three circles and live out our faith, our life for Christ in all three. Someone said, if anyone asks you this question, is the church in here or is the church out there? If anyone asks you, is the church in here or is the church out there? The answer is yes. Yes.